Cass, can you hear me? Dr. Cass? Okay, let me... Can you hear me? Your voice is very low. Are you able to hear me? Are you able to hear me? Can you hear me? Your voice is very low. I also, Melasi, can you hear him? Can you hear Dr. Cass? All right, I think is there any adjustment you might need to make, Dr. Cass? No, that wouldn't be it. Okay, you know what? Let's see. Dr. Cass, are you able to hear me? Yes, I can hear you. For some reason, let me see if it's on my end. Yeah, 1 second, babe. All right, let's do another mic check, Dr. Cass. I can hear you. Melaxi, can you hear Dr. Cass? It's low. All right, I'm gonna add you to the live and let's just see if our viewers will hear the same thing. I could hear you, Dr. Cass, but your voice is very low. But let me go ahead and add you to the live and then are you using a computer or a phone, Dr. Cass? Oh, better. Now your voice kind of gone up. Maybe if you lean forward into the, but you have a headset. You have on a headset. Okay. Yeah, you can go ahead. I think I could hear you. I can hear you better. Melaxi, you can hear him better, right? Good, good. That's good, Dr. Cass. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing, testing.
I hear you very, very clearly.
All right, once the music. Good night, everyone. Greetings to each and every one of you, wherever you are signing in from. Good night, Belize City. Good night, Orange Walk, Cayo. To those of you in the diaspora, I say good night to you, good morning, good evening. Wherever part of the planet Earth you are at this moment, thank each and every one of you for tuning in tonight, giving yourself a pat on the shoulder for tuning in tonight. Tonight is going to be an educational, informative episode. Tonight I'll be joined by my friend, my brother, son of the soil, here from Dangriga originally, Dr. Philip Castillo. He is going to be talking with us about his overview. He shared his analysis over the past, I believe, day or two about election season 2026 to 2030. And he also focused on Dangriga and everything Dangriga must come on Dangriga Unmuted. We will unmute tonight as to what Dr. Cass has seen, as to what his calculations are. It's quite linked. It's quite. I have Dr. Cass in the background, but I want to say your analysis, Dr. Cass, is quite thorough, and I know for most of us who we probably would have preferred watch a video, watch a movie. Most of us will not take our time and read the entire analysis. I read it thoroughly and I created what I called a reader's digest because I want to share with our audience. I want to share with those who might not have the time to go over and read the analysis. So welcome again to Dangriga Unmuted, where we unmute the truth and we demand change. Family, friends, there's so much happening in our beautiful country today. And it is very important. It's more important than before when we used to just sit back, watch the news, and let information just pass us by. It is very important that we remain alert, we keep in tune with what's happening in our nation and what's happening at home. We try to keep in tune with these happenings, with these occurrences that's taking place throughout the nation and break it down to you folks who will tune in to Obafo TV, Dangriga Unmuted, every Wednesday night. Now, I want to bring on Dr. Philip Castillo. This segment is going to be divided into, I'd say, 3 to 4 segments where we'll take breaks in between. Anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, we take a break. And then I have Melaxi, which will help me read the comments. It has become strenuous to just keep everything together while I do this live. So I'm grateful for her assistance tonight. So let's bring in Dr. Cass without any further ado. Dr. Cass, here's how I want to start this. BT Gunyon, good night to you. Thanks again for joining me on another episode of Dangriga Unmuted. You're always, whenever I call on you, you're always willing to share the wealth of wisdom you have, and you're always willing to offer yourself to come on this platform to educate our people and to build awareness as to the things that we as a nation, we as a community need to know. Our carried way back to Lakeland, Dr. Cass. You were raised in Dangriga in the Lakeland area. Make we start right for the give me overview of Philip Castillo as a barefooted boy back at Lakeland.
Before Lakeland, it started at Sawai. My first
Sawai.
was in the Sawai area, and then my family moved to Lakeland when I was about 11 or 12. And yes, Lakeland was among my best days because I made good friends in Lakeland. In fact, I met one of the friends today actually. Plax. I'm not certain if you remember Plax. I hadn't seen him in years, but I met Plax
I'm
today.
familiar with the name.
Yeah, yeah, but in Lakeland was my formative years because what Lakeland was, I was finishing primary school and entering high school, so I did that at Lakeland, and then from there, when I finished high school, I had to leave Dangriga because ecumenical was the highest level of education you could have gotten in the South. So in lots of ways, Lakeland was my formative years, and the memories still exist. It's a wonderful place. It has changed a bit, but yes, I still have fond memories of Lakeland. It's Lakeland City, by the way.
That's right. Yeah, man. I say you're a Lakeland because I had to be biased. I have a Lakeland too. So I just figured that you having roots in Dangriga, spending a lot of your time in Lakeland might as well claim you. My brother, I want to ease into the topics for tonight. I pretty much summarized or dissected your analysis into several parts. I'm going to call them out. And the approach I'd like to use tonight is I want to have you just Give me a Reader's Digest based on what you share, and then we will go through these bullet points. I have here UDP appears to be rebuilding. Voter turnout is declining. And all this applies to Dangriga. Third parties struggle in Dangriga. Economic indicators paint a troubling picture. Political representation does not reflect economic reality. Dangriga's greatest untapped asset, tourism and culture. This one I really want to dig with class into because I've been talking about this for a long time. Politicians should compete on implementation, not vision. Each and every one of these, I have a brief summary that I'm going to read before we touch on them, Dr. Cass. 8, non-voters are hurting their own future. Non-voters are hurting their own future. Election season may last until 2030. So, and I want you to explain that once we get to it, Dr. Cascade. My interpretation of that might be different than what others are perceiving. All right. So let me go all the way to the top. Once again, good night, folks. I noticed some more people are signing on, tuning in. Greetings to each and every one of you, wherever you are tuning in from. I have with me tonight Dr. Philip Castillo. He's going to give us a breakdown and an analysis of the election season 2026-2030, and we're going to focus on Dangriga. I have live with me as well Melaxi, who's going to be joining me to read the comments and go over these comments based on you, the viewers, based on your feedback. I will also open the phone lines for those of you who might want to call in and let your voices be heard. Dr. Cass, you shared your analysis. I gave you a breakdown. This is really just a drop of water in the ocean. Just give me from your brain, from your reservoir, your analysis. Election 2026, 2030, and Dangriga's positioning.
Let's start at the top. The election season has started because we know for a fact that in March next year there will be town board elections. There will be municipal elections. Dangriga has a town board. Right now it's all 7 PUP. The mayor and the 6 councillor candidates are all PUP. Now, the UDP, the opposition, has started to prepare. And they start to prepare by, I think both parties had a deadline whereby they submitted the names of persons who wanted to run, meaning that elections, as you know, as long as you apply, because both parties put out applications, you're free to apply to the party of your choice. It doesn't mean that the party will accept you, but at least you're free to apply. So what we now know, we know that at least 13 persons have applied to run under the UDP banner in Dangriga. We are not certain how many of those 13 will be accepted because the party has a vetting process. So then we are awaiting the vetting process. And then if the vetting process is such that there are more than 7, because you only need 7, 1 mayor and 6 councillor candidates. If the vetting process is such that there are more than 7, then obviously there generally will be a convention. So I anticipate that there will be a convention for the UDP in Dangriga. I am not certain of the date as yet. No, PUP had their own application. I think the application ended on Friday the 19th. Again, I'm not certain how many persons applied for the PUP. And based on that, I'm not certain if there will be a convention. But then if there is a convention, both conventions have to be held sometime this year because the elections are certain for next year. We're looking at March 2027. There will be municipal elections in Dangriga and countrywide. And for the most part, the 2 main parties contesting the election will be PUP and the UDP. Now, third parties, or they call themselves alternative parties, can also contest. No, I am not certain if that will happen, but whatever happens, after nomination day, when the names are clear who will run, I will run a poll, and then I will use statistical analysis to tell you who I think will win. That sets the tone for elections, municipal elections coming up in Dangriga. That's 2027. But then the following year, 2028, there will be village council elections. Dangriga as a constituency, for mayoral purposes, you've only focused on the town. But for general election purposes, Dangriga includes Hope Creek and Sarawee. So Hope Creek and Sarawee are electorally independent, except when there's a general elections, when they become part of Dangriga constituency. Village council elections will be held 2028. At present, PUP controls both Hope Creek and Sarawee. Then, the general elections are scheduled for 2030. They are scheduled for 2030. But in our system, the Prime Minister can call them at any time. So that's why I named my piece 2026 this year to 2030, because the season can last as long as 2030. But given our constitution, the Prime Minister can call it anytime he so wishes.
So let's start from the top. UDP appears to be rebuilding. 13 UDP candidates. Some of this will kind of repeat what you just said, but just to put things into context, including 2 mayoral hopefuls, have declared for the 2027 municipal elections. This suggests the party may be recovering from recent internal conflicts. The UDP has not won a seat on the Dangriga Town Board since 2021 after consecutive PUP sweeps in 2021 and 2024. The party now has a constituency caretaker and a national deputy chairman from Dangriga, signaling organizational rebuilding. Accurately said, you pretty much summarized that earlier. So that's straightforward. Let's take a look at voter turnout. You said it's declining. Let's expound on that a bit.
Well, it wasn't me who said it was declining. The numbers show that. Meaning that I visited the website of the Electoral and the Elections and Boundaries Commission, and then from all the data they have, I think from 2012 to 2024, you're looking at a 12-year period, you're looking at about 5 municipal elections. The trend is clear. You see a declining trend. I think from a high of 60-something% in 2012. I think in 2024 it was 51%, but it shows a consistent decline. So what that means then is it's obvious. Dangrigans are Grigalesians are participating less in the electoral process. You were once part of the electoral process, and you may have your reasons why, but in general, it's because of voter apathy. People no longer see themselves as part of the system. They feel detached from the system. So obviously you want to change that. We want to change that. Democracy is such that each person have a vote, and your vote gives you a voice. So if you're concerned with what's happening in your town, if you're concerned with what's happening, well, your own personal circumstances, it is such that things can be changed through the ballot. That's how we always want it to be. But then to change things through the ballot, you must participate. And that's what we're not doing in Dangriga.
I want to touch on that a bit. This is very, very important. Let me just repeat. It says, voter turnout in Dangriga has steadily declined from 63.21% in 2012 to 51.48% in 2024. Turnout consistently trails the national average, and the gap continues to widen. Many residents appear disillusioned with politics and doubtful that participation will improve their circumstances. This is so let me appeal to those of you listening here in Dangriga. This we are what I understand from Dr. Cass, and you said it well, Dr. Cass, when you do not participate, I want to make sure I don't shut down here. When you do not participate, voting is a right. When you choose not to go to the polls, at least in our system, you are simply allowing whatever come your way. When gas go up, cost of living overall go up, when there is poor health care or health system in place, transportation, every single thing, tuition, most or all of the items you go and you buy at the store, they are taxed. Hence the reason why most of these politicians, we're now hearing in the media, in the news, how families, they get the millions of dollars. But you get to choose who your leaders are, who your mayor will be, who your councillors will be, who your area representative will be. And as we move on to the next title here, Dr. Cass, voter turnout is declining. Voter turnout is declining. Many residents appeared disillusioned with politics and doubtful that participation, they are doubtful that participation will improve their circumstances. Um,
That, yeah, that's
Go
where the
ahead,
change
Dr.
needs to
Cass.
be, because where we are, you can impact the political process. Meaning that if you look at Belize as an economy, there are certain things that are substantially beyond our control. But focus on the things that are within our control. You have a right to elect, to go to the polls to elect who you want to govern you at the municipal and at the general elections level. And then what's peculiar about Dangriga is that if you look at the large non-voting population, if a certain percentage of that population voted, you could reasonably say that every single election in Dangriga, the results would have changed. The results could have changed.
Yeah.
We really don't know how the non-voters will vote, because it's quite possible that if you do not vote, that may indicate some kind of satisfaction with the status quo. That is possible. But it's also possible that you didn't vote because you're so disillusioned. No, by not voting, you're accepting the status quo. So then, if you look at the sheer size of the non-voting bloc, if that bloc can be persuaded to vote, it's quite possible that electoral results in Dangriga could change, could possibly change. So you want to encourage people to vote, because voting can make a change. Voting can make a difference.
Absolutely. And I thank you for that. Friends, family, those of you out there, let's all do our part. Right? We are here tonight on Obafo TV, Dangriga Unmuted. I come online every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Let's all do our part. Election, come 2027, March, I believe, is the
That's
town
correct.
council mayoral election. Encourage your children to vote. But before you vote, also encourage them to participate. Be active citizens. Listen to talks, dialogues, shows like this. Listen to people like Dr. Cass. He's definitely not biased. Know what's happening in your community, and when the time comes, 18 and over, go register to vote. Make a change in your community. If you say how your parents live and you don't like the way how your parents live, you can do something about it with your vote. Anything else to add to this, Dr. Cass, before we jump to the next subtitle?
No, let's move on to the next subtitle.
Third parties struggle in Dangriga. Although many voters express interest in alternatives to the PUP and UDP, third parties rarely achieve lasting success. Individuals often gain stronger support after joining one of the major parties. Examples include Dwayne Sampson and Stephen Laurie, whose vote totals increased significantly after moving from independent politics to the UDP. That's very interesting. I didn't even know Dwayne and I believe Laurie. I think Laurie went ran as an independent before. But please expound.
Well, there we could have a whole show on why third parties find it challenging in a two-party environment. Obviously, politics requires money, and then the funders, the persons who are funding politics, the people who put big money behind politics, they
Mm-hmm.
generally want to choose among one of the two parties because those are the ones who are likely to win. Um, that's only one reason, but there are multiple reasons why third parties find it challenging to survive, not only in Dangriga and Belize, but generally throughout the entire Caribbean. That's a problem. So what we saw with Mr. Sampson and Mr. Lowry was that by shifting from third party, what we saw with Mr. what we saw with Mr. Sampson and Mr. Lowry was that by shifting from independent to one of the major political parties, their support substantially increased. Again, it proves my point. I could use you as an example. When you ran on the general elections, when this year, 2025, there was no UDP on the slate. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the voter turnout was around 3,000 or just under that. But you got something like 20% of the vote. One in every five voters voted for you. No, if there was a UDP on that ballot, it's extremely unlikely that you'd have gotten that level of support. In fact, what happened in your case was that the UDP were quarreling, and then both leaders, Ms. Tracy Panton and Mr. Shine, they threw their support behind you. Obviously, that would not have happened if they had a horse in the race. The overall point then is that third parties find it challenging to survive. Money may be one reason why. And then if you're entering politics, if you want to win, you may find it easier to your hitch your horse, call it that, to one of the existing parties because that provides an easier path to electoral success.
Mm-hmm. I it's interesting we're on this topic because yes, take my experience for example. I walk the streets of Dangriga and I ask. As a matter of fact, I was having a conversation. I was in a conversation just 2 days ago. A group of guys. They're watching the game and we're talking politics. So one of them looked toward me and said, "Look, you are run, you are do this thing or what?" And I said to this brother the same thing I always say to anybody who asks me if I will run. I said, "Will you support me if I run?" I said, "Yes, man, I'm with you." And I asked him, "Are you ready to publicly endorse me to say that I stand with this dude, with this man?" And so the conversation got quiet, right? And I'm sharing this because I believe as an independent candidate, we look at the UDP, we look at the PUP. We're not even talking about the culture of the UDP and the PUP just yet, the culture within the system, right? This person is saying to me, listen, not this guy, but another individual sitting there. He turned around and looked at me like with almost with irritation, like he's just tired of hearing about this independent mission, so to speak, and said, look, what independent will never work. Dangriga will never vote in an independent. This is what this person is saying. And I kept my cool and I said, you know, a lot of people think like that. But imagine with all the people who think that. I used to think that. I saw Stephen Laurie. I never knew Dwayne Sampson went as independent before. I saw others. And I said to myself, many, I never happened. And I decided I will make a change. I will just make a change for myself. So I'm saying to all the people out there who always feel we have a point because that's what we always choose. Collectively, we do that. That's the narrative. That's the song we sing every day. Independent will never win. But what if? What if one day we decided and say, you know what? The UDP has never done us nothing great here in Dangriga. PUP, likewise. We will decide. We will choose a different path. I think if everybody stops say it will never happen and just try it, maybe we find out we see something different. Your take, Dr. Cass.
You said maybe, and I fully agree with that word, maybe, because the reality is, even if a third party win, let's say in Dangriga, the municipal governments are such that they depend substantially on the central government, meaning that Dangriga and the other towns and cities and the other municipalities, they get a subvention from government. And
Mm-hmm.
not only do they get that subvention, they get other forms of assistance from government. Now you would think, you would hope, and you would expect that when the central government is of one party and the municipal government is of the same party, that there's a symbiotic relationship, and based
Mm-hmm.
on that, you expect that the town benefits. That mostly happens. Now, how persons perceive it is that if the central government is of one party and the town board is of a different party, that the central government could halt or could slow down resources being provided to that municipality. That's also a possibility determining their vote. Now, if they vote independent, they lose either way because it's very unlikely that at the national level, independence would comprise the government. So I'm just rationalize it how they sometimes say that
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you want resources to flow to your town. Dangriga is a town in need of development, and possibly the fastest way, the quickest way to get development is to hitch your train to one of the existing parties because it is one of those existing parties who will form central government and as such be in a position to provide the resources that the town needs.
I have um I have a lot I'd like to add to that, Dr. Cass. But before I continue, I wanna bring on Melaxe for the comments. We have some comments in the comment section, and I want to acknowledge each and every one of you um, that are participating tonight. All right, the only way we're going to make change, the only way we're going to make a difference in our communities is if we participate. So please don't take your participation on this platform for granted. Melaxe, what do we have?
Good evening. Good evening, Uruwei. Good evening, Dr. Castillo. Good evening, everybody. Um, we have quite a few comments and some greetings. Uh, we could start off. Merlene Lopez, she's watching. Also, Mr. Eric Castillo, good evening to you. He just, commented, gentlemen, blessings. It's never too late to recalculate. Aba Isiani. Uh, Gretchen, good evening to you. Um, as far as the dialogue, one is directed to Dr. Castillo. Gretchen wants you to address the stand on redistricting issue, if you can do that. And to Eula Enriquez, she was talking about will if they end up with a leader like Trump, no complaining because there should be no excuse for not participating in the voting process. So that's for the low vote turnout, the topic that you guys were discussing. And that's pretty much it for the comments so far.
All
All
right.
right,
If I could speak,
thanks, Melak. So go ahead, Dr. Cass.
if I could speak briefly on the redistricting, it's well known that the electoral constituencies in this country are substantially malapportioned. Stann Creek West has over 10,000 voters, and Albert and Mesopotamia and Queens Square and Fort George, you're looking at less than 3,000 voters. No, these area representatives, they get around the same amount of money. So if you get, say, I think it's $20,000. If you get $20,000 to share among 3,000 persons, and somebody else get the same $20,000 to share among 10,000 persons, you could see the imbalance. You could see the substantial imbalance. And a person in Belize City can walk around his or her constituency in about 1 hour. The person from Stann Creek West starts, you're looking at as from the coming into the town from the Hummingbird Highway. I think it's at Hummingbird Community, I think, mile 20 something. And then it goes, if you're going on the Thomas Vincent Highway, it goes up to Independence and Placentia. These are huge areas, and all that is Stann Creek West. So you want redistricting to occur. Both parties currently benefit from the status quo. The government can do it because they are the government. They could change the law. But I've always maintained that what the opposition can do, the opposition can say, listen, this is how we will redistrict. And if you vote us in, this is how we will do it. And then you could hold them to that. So the opposition is also at fault because there's absolutely nothing stopping them from deciding right now. You get a statistician and you run the numbers and you decide how you will redistrict. You want to keep it at 31, really. We don't need more than 31 representatives. The opposition can do that right now if they so wish. But yes, we need redistricting. My brother Jerry Enriquez has been championing that. It's in the courts right now. We'll see what government says between now and elections.
There's a lot to be said about this whole redistricting situation. The Prime Minister has promised. As a matter of fact, whenever you come to the topic of redistricting, most of us here in Dangriga and Stann Creek West, and also the PG area, the entire South, we have to understand something here. Your area representative, it seems that your area representative cannot not even champion redistricting, rally behind Jerry Enriquez to come out and say we need to do this. If they ask a question, they beat around the bush, they be political. Each and every one of you to change this, to make this change, to make sure that Dangriga is equally or close to equally represented, we have to do it together. We have to stand together. It know what happened by itself. And before I have you give your final comments on this, Dr. Cass, or address the other comments that Melaxi read earlier, Gianni Bresenio in Orange Walk, he has about 6,000, let's round it off to 6,600 voters in his constituency. Rodwell Ferguson has about 11,000. Whenever I come on live, I talk about this. Dangriga has about 6,300, close to 500. Based on the constitution, Dangriga and Gianni Bresenio's constituency is supposed to be within the same bracket, if you want to call it that. But Gianni Bresenio is getting whole at 25,000 for his constituency when Dangriga just to get 15,000. And that not bad. Stann Creek West, Rodwell Ferguson, who has over 11,000 electorates in his constituency, compare 11,000 to 6,600. And he'd get less than Johnny Briseno. He's getting 20,000 according to what they show. Dr. Cass.
That's a separate issue. That is a separate issue. I mean, within the government itself, the ministers they have different. I used to work at Ministry of Finance. When the budget, in preparing the budget, ministers have different strengths, and ministers have different bargaining power, and ministers have different level of control within the same government, and you see that at play. That explains why the prime minister and some ministers in Belize City and Orange Walk can get far more than ministers in the south, even though they're from the same party. So that's a different level of politics at play. But let's focus on the overall redistricting. We are looking at a gross uneven distribution of voters per constituency. And that first and foremost needs to change. You want to change that first before you address other imbalances that follow from that. In fact, my involvement in polling, a Belize City minister years ago, just work it out. If he gets 20,000 for around 3,000 voters, no, voter turnout is never 100%. So let's say of those 20,000 voters, sorry, of those 3,000 voters, let's say only 2,000 would go to vote. He now has 20,000 to distribute among 2,000 voters. Of those 2,000 voters, he may generally know who will vote for him or who will not vote for him. If he used his constituency funds to focus on his voters, he could never lose. Because every month he bring their rice and beans and sugar and so on and so on. He or she could never lose.
That's a good point. That's a very solid point. That's man. So final word on the redistricting, and I'm not sure if you want to address any of the recent comments. Anything stand out you want to touch on? I believe that was Gretchen.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the next subtitle in your analysis. Economic indicators paint a troubling picture. Stann Creek recorded the highest unemployment rate in Belize at 2.9% compared to the national rate of 1.9%. Consumer confidence declined sharply between March and April 2026. Stann Creek was also the only district where multi-dimensional poverty increased, rising from 14.8% in 2024 to 23% in 2025. Many jobs being created are low skill and low wage, making it difficult to escape persistent poverty. Dr. Cass, please expound.
Again, these are not my data. These are official data from Belize's official statistical institute of Belize, from the official SIB. That is Belize's official data gathering and dissemination agency, our statistical institute. They publish data on a fairly regular basis. Most persons, and they have press conferences on a fairly regular basis. Most persons may not listen to their press conferences, may not tune into their data, but I do, and I understand these numbers. Now, the other thing about Belize's national data is that they're aggregated. So then, when they say Belize country Belize country unemployment is 1.9%, that's the official unemployment countrywide. But then, to get that figure, you have to go by the various districts, and then you calculate the unemployment rate in the various districts, and then you do what is called a weighted average. to get the national figure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when they did that, they saw that Stann Creek District had the highest rate of unemployment, which was 1%. The country was
2.9,
1.9.
2.9. The
Yes.
nationally it's 1.9. Stann Creek is 2.9. So
Which
1%
is,
higher of
yes,
the entire nation.
yes. So there are 6 districts. Stann Creek had the highest unemployment rate among those 6 districts. What that means is that some districts must have had a rate less than 1.9, so that when you average it out, you come to the 1.9.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah. So it means then that the economic situation in the town has, well, in the district has to be dire. Look at consumer confidence. Look at multidimensional poverty. The way how we measure poverty now is no longer by income poverty. We look at other dimensions of poverty. So we focus on multidimensional poverty. You could see the rate jumped in the Stann Creek District.
Just briefly explain for those who might be listening that might say, what is multidimensional poverty? Please explain that to me. Break it down. Just a summary.
Well, there are other dimensions of poverty, meaning that generally in the past we used to focus on income poverty, that you're poor because your income is below a certain level. When we look at multidimensional poverty, we look at other indicators. We look beyond income. We look at your housing condition. We look at access to education. We look at access to health. We look at access to running water and things like that. So there are other indicators. I think there are 17 indicators that make up multidimensional poverty, which make it different from income poverty that just looks at income.
Mm-hmm.
So focusing on multidimensional poverty, you see what happened in the Stann Creek District. No, Stann Creek isn't the worst. By far the worst is Toledo. But Stann Creek is still doing pretty bad. And the
Mm-hmm.
focus here is on Stann Creek. I may focus on the other districts some other time, but my focus is on Stann Creek and Dangriga. And what you see a persistent pattern. You see varying indicators pointing out that the socioeconomic situation is dire in the town. And that needs to change.
It is important, the last part of your sentence, it's important that those of you listening keep that in mind. You know, I asked you to come on tonight, Dr. Cass, because you could, who else out there, based on your research, based on what you've shown over the couple of years that you've been doing these surveys, I say, who else better to break it down to our people, to those here in Dangriga? Who else better to show the numbers? If you would choose one core or key element that's causing us to be stagnant, reading the topic, economic indicators paint a troubling picture. Dangriga has been economically depressed for so long. If you could just choose one or maybe two core reasons, why do you think we remain economically troubled?
Well, because the main industry on which Dangriga and Stann Creek District depended has been falling. If you look at agriculture, look at citrus. In my days, you speak of Lakeland. Jetty was where the money was, meaning that the citrus industry was humming in the south, and
Mhm.
citrus was exported through Jetty, Commerce Bank, and that generated a level of income that stayed in the town. Several women from the town, they would go to the factory, mile 12 and mile 14, and they had employment as we call them subers, but that wasn't their official title. Sectionizers, that was their official title. sectionizers. And then Dangriga or through jetty, they would export, they'd put the grapefruit and the orange in cans. They would section them in cans and they would export those, and then concentrate was exported. That was a main economic activity. That was
Mm-hmm.
the bedrock, the foundation of other economic activities in the town. That has declined. So then, what needs to happen is that the town needs to look at its comparative advantages. What does Dangriga have that can facilitate development? No, if you do that, you would look at the beach, you would look at the sea, you would look at jetty from a new perspective. These are what we call our natural resources that we have that can be developed to bring about the development and the growth that Dangriga desperately needs.
I hope that those of you listening were not just listening just to listen, but to really spread the message and be serious about um, how we vote. Let's be responsible with how we vote. We talk about voter turnout declining. Let's hope that more of these youths, 'cause I believe that the youths was saved than Griga. I believe, Dr. Cass, that the youths was saved than Griga. A lot of the youths know the vote, and a lot of them just they live. We have a lot of so many of our let's refer to them as seniors, 50 and up, and even below 50, even between 30 and 40, 40 and up. We are locked into this PUP, UDP mentality, and that is hurting us. Stay informed. Encourage your children to vote and not just point to a color or a party to them. Let them know why they're voting for these people. And for you who gonna go cast your ex, make sure you know why. Don't just go and vote because mommy tell you or daddy tell you. We need to break this cycle. Um, Political representation does not reflect economic reality. Government remains the town's largest employer. Very true. Significant contributors to the local economy, including the Asian and Mennonite communities, have little or no representation in local politics. I'm reading this. This is an excerpt from what you shared. Castillo suggests governance should become more inclusive of all sectors contributing to economic activity. Let's expound on that, Dr. Cass.
Well, you certainly want that to happen. We agree that government is the largest employer. You're looking at the just about all the main government departments are in Dangriga. You're looking at police and income tax and the fire department, and these are all government offices and social welfare and those kind of things. If you go beyond government to include the town board and DFC and social security, if you include all that within the umbrella of government, then obviously government is the biggest employer in Dangriga. No, focus now on the private sector. If you say there about let's say about 20, I wanted to do the count, but maybe you can do the count here from Dangriga. Um, say about 20 Chinese Asian stores in Dangriga. If each one hires 4 persons, you're looking at 80 persons being employed. If the average family size is 4, 80 times 4, you're looking at 320 persons basically being impacted by the Chinese community,
Mhm.
Chinese, Taiwanese, Asian. And the Mennonites are also large employers, close to where my mother lives, Quality Poultry and
Mhm.
the Caribbean Tires and West Track. And yeah, these are big employers. No, you don't see them yet um, being involved in electoral politics. the names of the 13 persons who put themselves up to run for the UDP. I do not know their names. I'm not certain if anyone would include a Chinese or a Taiwanese or a Mennonite. I similarly do not know the names of the persons who have put themselves up to run for PUP, but I'm not certain if those ethnic nationalities would be included either. In my analysis, I gave a breakdown of the ethnic breakdown. I gave a breakdown of the ethnicity in Dangriga. You're looking at the Asians. I think it's less than 1%. I think it's less than 1%. It's somewhere in the analysis. So you see, they have economic power as employers, but they're not yet represented in the political. Well, you don't see them yet running as operatives, running as representatives for any political party as yet. I'm hoping that that changes, because what that would do, that would make the town board more representative of the ethnic breakdown that exists in the town.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, these are statistics, Dr. Katz. These are the government remains the town's largest employer. Significant contributors to the local economy, including the Asian and Mennonite communities, have little or no representation in local politics. Um, this stood out to me. They have no representation in local politics. What are you saying here? Is it that, okay, they're still doing good, they're doing great, and they have no representation in local politics? Or are you saying that we should have them participate in local politics, or they should put themselves to represent or participate in local politics? Which one is it?
They have a right to, meaning that they're at least, maybe not the older persons, but certainly their children are born Belizeans and born Brigalesians, which means that those are they are here to stay. This is also their
Mm-hmm.
town. So you want them to be involved in their town because this is also their town. Now, they also bring a level of resources, they bring a level of entrepreneurship that the town needs.
Mm-hmm.
So they may not be involved in politics yet in Dangriga, but you see it at the national level in Belize City for the rep for Mesopotamia,
Limak.
Limark. Yeah. So you start to see it in Belize City at the national level, and you want to see that in Dangriga also, because these persons bring a level of expertise, they bring a level of resources, and they bring a level of diversity that the town needs. That can't hurt.
Don't you think though that if it was up to, I'm just, this is not even being the devil's advocate, but don't you believe that if they really wanted, they could have, or it could happen.
Yeah.
If they
Well,
put
yes.
themselves out there, that could happen.
Then maybe yes, it could happen because again, being from Dangriga, being Grigalesians, they could join any political party because I know for a fact that they vote. As a pollster, I could tell you that they do vote. So then maybe they could move beyond that stage. So maybe it's on their time. You're quite right that entering politics is a voluntary process. So maybe
Yeah,
they're
it
not yet
is.
at that stage. Maybe they're not yet at that stage. But when they decide to take that other jump, they should be welcomed because they bring resources, they bring expertise, they bring entrepreneurial ability that we could all benefit from.
Yeah, I think it's something we need to pay attention to. I do know that I feel safe to say that some of them are unwilling, some of them rather not bother. We have a culture among ourselves, the way we interact, we assume things. We might assume that because someone looks like an Asian, like a Chinese, like a, you know, they might not want to have anything to do with Dangriga's politics, right? So it could be assumption on both parties, both sides. I look forward to it happening, especially if there's somebody who, like you said, they bring a skill, right? They bring a skill set and they could benefit the tongue. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind at all. Um, if you don't have another comment on that, we could press forward, Dr. Cass.
Yes.
Now, this is one of my, I know I say favorite, I wouldn't say favorite, but one that stands out to me. Um, Dangriga's greatest untapped asset, tourism and culture. Dangriga's continuous beachfront and rich Garifuna heritage present major opportunities for for maritime and cultural tourism. Music, food, crafts, fashion, traditional arts, and cultural experiences could generate jobs and stimulate economic growth while preserving local identity. Beautifully said. Let's talk about that.
That is precisely how we need to go. Meaning that let's focus first on our what I call our comparative advantage, our natural resources that give us that level of comparative advantage. We have a beach contiguous. Dangria is the only town on the mainland that has a beach along its entire seafront. We have jetty, it's a deep water pier. No,
Mhm.
imagine now a small cruise ship, let's say 100 persons, come to jetty. You want then, right now, let me just segue a bit into what happens in Belize City. The cruise ships you see in Belize City, those are parked about 5 miles out. They take an hour. The tenders that bring the tourists from the cruise ship to Belize City take about an hour. When they arrive in Belize City, some stay in the tourism village, some take tours around Belize City, some go to Altonha, which is the closest marine, some go to the caves and those kind of places. Now, think about that happening on a smaller scale in Dangriga. A cruise ship with, let's say, 100 persons come to Dangriga. That ship parks at jetty. You take them, there's a nice road now from jetty. You bring them to the multipurpose park that's in front of Secretariat area. That's one place where they could do some shopping. There's an area that possibly our local musicians can do performances. Then there's some stalls that people could buy things and souvenirs and artifacts. Then you take them to say there are at least two museums I know in Dangriga. There's Pen Cayetano and then there's Gulisi. But there are other cultural attractions. The drum making. I'm not certain if Miss Rodriguez still
Rodriguez.
make still makes drums by Why Not area. You take them there. You could take them to maybe Chiste auditorium that maybe Holy Ghost, which is a nearby school, can do a performance there. What you'll see money being left in the town. If 100 persons come and each person spends 100 US, that's money in the town that the town didn't have. No, that 100 US will be spread around various persons because those tourists have to eat. They'll be entertained. They may buy artifacts. Several persons benefit. So that is what you want. Now, the power of the word of mouth. If those persons had a wonderful experience, then they'll come again. They'll tell
Mhm.
other persons because you want the cruise ship to come as possibly often, maybe twice a week, 3 times per week. That is the
Right.
kind of sustainable development that I see occurring in Dangriga. And I must say that you could already see the infrastructure being laid to facilitate that very kind of development.
You're absolutely right, my brother. There's a lot more about this I want to comment on. I want to chime in. But again, I'm going to pause. I'm going to bring on Melaxi. We have some new comments. I want to acknowledge those who have been commenting, who have been participating. I always say the only way to make a difference, the only way to bring about change, we have to get up and do the work. We have to be active. We have more comments. After once we come on again, I'll give you guys the opportunity to call in as well. The number to call is 614-POWER, 614-7692. Melaxi, what do we have?
Okay, by Diane Williams. Both parties do not want to do redistricting because it will cut down Belize City seats, which they do not want to let go for the seats they hold. It is important to address this issue before the next general election. And Colin
Any,
Coran Smith.
before you continue, anything on that, Dr. Cass?
I fully agree. I fully concur.
Okay. All right. Colin.
Colin Coran Smith. I believe with good governance and a leadership that are genuine about leading us and doing good for our country, we would be in a better place. Years and years goes by and same thing over and over. Corruption are in most countries, but Belize, it's like they do it in front of your face and still lie. I must
That's
say I
true.
admire Mia Mottley, Prime Minister of Barbados. If our Prime Minister would only think big like her and talk smart, he doesn't sound professional on news 90% of the time. May our kids and grandchildren experience a better Belize one day because it ain't getting better at all.
Well said. Is that it? Anyone?
Well said.
That's
Well said.
all.
That's about
Yeah.
it. All right. Thank you all for your comment. We're going to come back again this time. Next time, I'll give you guys the opportunity to call in if any one of you wish to hop in. Dr. Cass, you want to comment? Thanks again, Melaxi.
Well, I'm thinking, Cyril, that this tourism village, even you yourself can substantially benefit. You are a yoga instructor. Now imagine 100 persons come and 50 of them want a half-hour yoga session. That's where you come in.
I agree. I agree. I'll definitely keep that in mind. But,
Yeah.
I wanted to comment on this as well, Dr. Cass. I met with the mayor. Um, it must have been at least 4 to 5 months now. And he did mention that once this development in front of Sacred Heart and Sacred Heart Church and Sacred Heart School, once it's completed, it will be handed over to the town council. Now, you mentioned so many things that we can do, which is very true. It is true there's a lot we can do, but what I'm envisioning when you talk about, oh, you left Jetty and you go to this multi-purpose park, we, the people, have to become more involved. We have to ask more questions. We have to ask how it benefit us, the majority. Who will be responsible to bring them from Jetty to this multi-purpose park? Who will own the booths out there? What will be allowed? There's so many things, so many questions to answer. And I want to encourage each and every one of you listening, especially if you live here in Dangriga or you have ties, you have roots here in Dangriga. Pay attention to what's happening. Dr. Kass, you mentioned so many great ideas that we could even do bird watching. We have mangrove. We have tourists that come to Belize just for to watch birds, right? So there's so much we can do. Let me read this again, just so it could be inculcated, so we remember it. Dangriga's greatest untapped asset: families, friends, brothers, sisters. Our greatest untapped asset: tourism and culture. Dangriga's continuous beachfront and rich Garifuna heritage present major opportunities for maritime and cultural tourism. Music, food, crafts, fashion, traditional arts, and cultural experiences could generate jobs and stimulate economic growth while preserving local identity. Final remarks on this one, Dr. Cass.
Because when you're generating money from culture, that provides you with the incentive to want to preserve your culture. Look at the colorful uniforms that all the various dance groups in Dangriga have. These must cost a lot to find the cloth and to find the seamstresses. In fact, I know for a fact that some of the seamstresses that sew those wonderful outfits may not be from Dangriga. I'm not certain how many tailors Dangriga has now. But now, when money is being generated on a sustainable basis, then everybody, the money will percolate, the money will spread. That if you know that your job is to be an entertainer, a performer, a drummer, and this is your pay, then that provides you with an incentive to train, to go to the training sessions, to do your best, to show your best, to get your uniforms and those kind of things. But you also know that this job provides you with the resources, with the wherewithal to pay your way, to buy your uniform, to buy the cloth and those kind of things. That's how money is generated. That you have persons at the front. For every dance group, there are persons at the front and there are persons in the background. So you want money to be made by all the parties. Look at the dance groups in Dangriga, the bands. You're looking at Wagera drummers. Pen could come out like now and then. I know about Nuru. You would know more about the younger guys because I'm not as young now, but
You're still young. You know, sorry, go ahead.
We're saying that an opportunity like a tourism village, I think Pelican is trying to do it now on Paranda Fridays. You want that same kind of concept at the tourism village, whereby your artists, your local artists, would perform to a more an international set of tourists, visiting tourists, and that's how their name spreads. That's how their music sells. That's how. Sorry, yeah.
That's good. This is so good. This is good. And I listen. There are some of you who you don't want to comment in the you don't want to comment in the public domain, and I respect that. And I said that to say that I received some WhatsApp messages. There's an individual inquiring. I mentioned that I met with the mayor a couple of months ago. This person is asking the development in front of Sacred Heart Church and Sacred Heart School. Is the land lease? Who owns the land? And if it's based on lease, how long is it leased for? What's the term? What's the contract? I'm assuming this is something you can't help with, Dr. Cass, but
no,
I
really can't, but I can say that really, if you expect an investor to put down the level of investment that you're seeing on that property, he or she must have either some firm title to the land or some firm lease for a long-term period. That would be anticipated. You wouldn't
well,
expect
this is like new. I've never thought about this, and the individual who messaged and asked this question, I have to thank you, man. This is very important, folks. Pretty soon, I will give you the opportunity to dial in if you want to call in. The number to call is 614, of course, 501 614 7692. I'm putting that on the screen at this very moment in case any of you want to chime into the conversation. So yeah, Dr. Cass, I've never thought about that. I would really like to know. This is something I will have to look into. If it was sold, who was it sold to? If it's based on lease, we want to know the details of that. I think the people of Dangriga has all right to know.
I fully concur. What I know for a fact, though, is that you can't sell the beach. The beach is public. So the beach
Of
is out
course.
there and it's
Of
public.
course.
But reasonably, if you're expecting an investor to put that level of capital, then the investor himself or herself possibly must have some level of assurance that they have access to the land for a certain number of years. That is reasonable.
Yeah, the number, folks, again, is on the screen if you want to call and contribute to this conversation. I have with me Dr. Philip Castillo. My brother, I thank you for accepting my invitation. We're not quite concluding just yet, but I just have to thank you again because whenever you come on here, it is always something really beneficial. You come with a lot of informative content. So, folks, those of you listening, feel free to keep commenting. If you want to call in, the number is on the screen, 614-7692. Before we take off, Dr. Cass, anything you want to add to this topic? Let me read it one more time. Dangriga's greatest asset, untapped. Dangriga's greatest untapped asset, tourism and culture. Dangriga's continuous beachfront and rich Garifuna heritage preserve major opportunities for maritime and cultural tourism, music, food, crafts, fashion, traditional arts, and cultural experiences could generate jobs, tons of jobs, and stimulate economic growth while preserving local identity. So true. Moving on. Politicians should compete on implementation, not vision. Let me read my summary here and then I will ask Dr. Cass to comment. Dr. Cass argues, based on his analysis, that political leaders should agree on a shared development plan for Dangriga and then compete on who can implement that plan most effectively, efficiently, and transparently. My goodness, this one, I love it too. Dr. Cass, talk to me.
It's straightforward that we have politicians, PUP and UDP. If you look at Dangriga's assets, if you look at Dangriga's advantages, we must could agree on what Dangriga has, right? I call them comparative advantages or natural advantages, right? Natural resources. We must could agree on what Dangriga has. Having agreed on what Dangriga has, we then could decide on the development path for Dangriga. No, all this can be done collectively. PUP and UDP can agree on that. There must be a development plan that Dangrigans could agree on, Grigalesians could agree on. No, having agreed on this development plan, you see, all right, this is the plan. Then now our politics could then focus on who best can implement that plan. Focusing on PUP City Council and focusing on UDP City Council, who best of those two city councils, who best can implement this plan to activate, to effectuate that vision that you see in front of Secretary, and who could do so most efficiently, most effectively, and most transparently, so that questions that you have now, such as who owned the land, if the land is leased, how much is being paid for the lease per year, per annum, that shouldn't be a secret. So
Absolutely.
then,
Absolutely.
you want the politics to reach to a higher level. You want our local politicking to go up to a higher level, that we agree on this is the way forward for Dangriga. No, we want to move from point A to point B. Who better can take us there from point A to point B? Can PUP City Council do that between 2024 and 2027? Or can UDP do that? Or can a third party do that? And do the same thing for nationals when the elections are held. Can the incumbent era rep do that? Can the UDP, the caretaker do that or a third party do that. Cyril has run for general elections. You may want to run again. Can you do that? Put your ideas forward, and the town sees that, and let's all vote based on the ideas in front of us. That's what we need.
Man, beautifully said. Beautifully said. I hope those of you out there listening, by the way, you can tune in on YouTube as well. Put it per your flat screen TV. Make it a family affair. I say that anytime I come on. Sometimes I forget to say it, but remember, we're on YouTube. Beautifully said, Dr. Cass. Beautifully said. All parties, all individuals, UDP, PUP, Dwayne Sampson, Crystalline, whichever one of they were run up, Robert Mariano, let's come up with a development plan. Whichever plan stand the test and seem to be the one that should be implemented, let's start implementing that plan. Let's start taking action for Dangriga and not for the United Democratic Party. For Dangriga and not for the People's United Party. We could do this, Dangriga. I honestly believe we could do this. I must say crazy, but I hope that Uno become crazy like me and think that we could do it. And in far, it is not far away. The way how most of you are so tired with what's going on with the PUP. Here in Dangriga, PUP, UDP. I won't get into much details right now. Any other comment, Dr. Cass?
Listen, I mean, the start is there. You already are seeing things. You see jetty being developed. You see the road being paved. You see the multipurpose park. And the other thing I would wish though is that again, I am not an advocate for any of those persons. I do not know who's building the park. I have no affiliation with any person associated with the park. I must put that out front. But I know development when I see it. And so then, because the development is happening, you would want them to focus on renewable energy. It's a big issue in Belize. This country buys its power from Mexico. We have sunlight just about all year
Yeah.
round. The area we're talking about is by the beach. You could talk about, well, I know that wind power is extremely expensive, but certainly, I'm not certain how much more it will cost if you designate a piece of the park and you have some solar panels there and you use those solar panels to generate power for the park, at least for the lights around the park and things like that. You want to include solar energy because we have it all year round and it will make the operational cost a bit lower. That would be my final comments on that.
No, I love it, Dr. Cass, and I thank you. I appreciate you for it. Folks, we have to put on our thinking cap, man. I really believe, Dr. Cass, that we can do it. This is my hope for Dangriga, right? And I want to make it clear. You know, mean because you run under UDP or PUP, that's just not the way. I myself, I want to put this for the record. If I would see it fit, beneficial to run as UDP or PUP, depending on the circumstances, I would. If what I'm seeing is going to be good for Dangriga, it's going to be profitable, I would. So I don't want people feel like I just want with scrap. We have to choose Dangriga first. That's my point. And I just think that oftentimes when these individuals run up as UDP or as PUP, that's their main aim. I'm a UDP, I'm a PUP. And it's UDP first or PUP first and then the people. I have a big problem with that. Let me read this one more time as we close out and jump to the next topic. We're almost at our end. We have two more subtitles to pick on, Dr. Cass, and then we will conclude. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Good. Um, so again, we're closing out of politicians should compete, UDP, PUP, independent, should compete on implementation, not vision. Again, Dr. Cass argues that political leaders should agree on a shared development plan for Dangriga and then compete on who can implement that plan most effectively, most efficiently, and most transparently. Moving on to the next topic. Non-voters are hurting their own future. Non-voters, those of you who are not voting, you are hurting your own future according to Dr. Cass' analysis. Residents who choose not to vote are allowing others to make decisions that shape the future of their community. Residents who choose not to vote are allowing others to make decisions that shape the future of their community. Dr. Philip Castillo warns that non-participation ultimately affects future generations. Non-participation ultimately affects future generations. Dr. Cass.
Well, when people are seeing things, when people are seeing that their leaders have agreed on a vision, their leaders have agreed that tourism can be merged with culture to benefit everybody. Now, when people see that, when that vision is being sold to people, and the choice that you now have is which among these parties can better implement that, can more transparently can more transparently implement that vision. That in itself, I think, is a motivator for persons to want to vote, because persons now would then see themselves as part of the future, that this tourism village, this entity that's out there can benefit me in some way. And if it doesn't benefit me, it benefits my children, my grandchildren, because it is here to stay and properly managed. This would be the cycle, like this would be the foundation upon which Dangriga can grow. And if we present it like that, then people would want to be a part of that process. People would see direct benefits of participating in the voting process. And I think that that would go a long way towards reducing the non-voting population in Dangriga, because people will see direct benefits, tangible benefits from their vote. The benefits may not immediately accrue to them, but certainly to the town and to their generation. And that itself, I think, has to be regarded as a positive.
Absolutely. I want to focus on, you know, we, you know, Dr. Cass, we sit in our living rooms, in our bedroom, on our iPad, on our phone, our iPhone, our Samsung Galaxy. We scroll the net, we scroll Facebook, we scroll YouTube. We come across informative content, discussions such as this one. But yet, we go living the same way we do every year, every day, every year, every 3 years for municipal election, every 5 years for general elections. We go in and out and do the same thing. And then we come back again and listen to these shows. And we nod our head and say, boy, that's true what the man they said. That make a whole lot of sense. But are we taking action? Are we taking action? Non-voters are hurting their own future. Residents who choose not to vote are allowing others to make decisions that shape the future of their community. My brother Dr. Castillo warns that non-participation ultimately affects future generations. One comment from Mr. Eric Castillo. Let's go to the comment. Melaxe, are you ready? Let's see here. Let's make sure I am ready. My brother, Uncle Tony, Mr. Eric Castillo. Let's see what Uncle Tony has to say.
Eric Castillo says tourism farming with a 20-year plan can be sustainable business for Dangriga
Tourism farming with a
with a
sustainable plan,
20-year plan
with a 20-year plan. Let me
can
not
be
interrupt you.
sustainable
Please,
business.
please, please, please start it from the top.
Tourism farming with a 20-year plan can be sustainable business for Dangriga.
Dr. Kass.
Well, it starts now. It's going to be more than 20 years because when the first tourist reach, he or she has to eat. No, think about giving that tourist ital food close to the park, close to the multipurpose park. Isn't there the town pier? Can't
Right.
you go to that town pier right now and catch a rati and feed that tourist? Think about that.
I agree, big time. I agree that would be an experience to behold, actually.
Yes, yes. And then the tourist has to eat. You're looking at local food. You're looking at reviving agriculture in Dangriga. Fruits and vegetables and plantain and yams, and the tourist has to eat. And as much as possible, you want the tourists to eat local cuisine. So that's where our
Absolutely.
local and traditional cooks have their jobs and those kind of things. You want that. You really want that. In fact, it could be part of the experience. You take the tourists out on Tompia. The Tompia, I think it's improved now.
Well, they
Show
did a
him,
little. Before
yeah.
we continue, Melaxi, any other comment? Should we pause on the comments for now? All right, good. We're going to pause on the comment and then we're going to come back again with one final comment in case any of you guys have anything you want us to address. And please remember, you can also call if you feel like 614-7692, or you could WhatsApp that same number 614-7692. Dr. Kass, sorry, you were saying.
Yes, I was thinking about that as a tourism experience. You take the tourists out to you walk on the Pompia. You show him how
Mhm.
you catch grati. Show him or her how you catch grati. If he or she catches one, you take that same one. It shouldn't take long to boil it, and in about half hour, the tourists could be eating that, and then you this that becomes
No,
part of an
it.
experience.
Hey, it's not that it's funny. It's just
Yeah.
you're right. It can happen. It's an experience that can happen. But continue. I like hear this.
This is what you want. These are things that build the links between tourism and culture and the local community. And well, we have to focus on security. You want the person to be safe. At
Yeah.
all times, you want the person to be safe. And that can be done because you would have security guards around the fence and those kind of things. But that is what you want. You want it to be known that, listen, Dangriga is open for tourism. Dangriga is safe for tourism. And when
Mm-hmm.
that spreads, then you see development occurring. Um, yes, you see development occurring and persisting. You see development continuing. That is what we all want.
I totally agree. Friends and families, to those of you tuned in to Dangriga Unmuted tonight, where we unmute the truth and we demand change. Griga, we have a long stretch of beach. We're not too far from the Keys. We're not too far from zip lining waterfall. We have a beautiful river where they run right in at the center of the town. We can do it. Together, we can do it. All we have to do is put Dangriga first. Michael Ashcroft said it. One of the Michael Ashcroft, that if most Belizeans know rich people or millionaires, that Michael Ashcroft, they know most of them, most of us. The man said it. The electorate is corrupt. The voters are corrupt. It's the voters. Not only the politicians are corrupt too. Most of them. But the voters are corrupt. Let me ask you, Dr. Kass, what say you? What do you think of a PUP in power with a mayor, with a UDP mayor at the town board?
Well, unfortunately, you're right. That level of where the political party in government, they tend to support their town boards or their municipal authorities more than the others, and that is unfortunate. It still happens, but what you want that having committed a certain amount of money, meaning that government gives a certain subvention to the town board, then you want the town board now, whichever party, to use its own ingenuity to generate more money. For example, in Dangriga, if we have 3,000 households in Dangriga, there's a way how Dangriga could generate property taxes. I'm not certain if the percentage being paid, but we ought to then pay our taxes. That tourism village will generate money. You want that money to be, for example, if you rent a booth, obviously you have to pay the various artists who are performing. Either they pay, either they are paid or they generate money from their performances. That your broader question is relevant. That a PUP central government may want to hold resources from a UDP town board and vice versa. A UDP town board, a UDP central government may want to withhold resources from a PUP town board.
PUP.
Yeah, from a PUP town board. So what you want then, you want the town board being aware of that to focus on its own resources. That yes, it will get some money from government, but think beyond that money. If these things work out in the town, these things provide income that will be independent of central government. And that provides the wherewithal for the town, for the municipal authorities in the town to thrive independent of central government.
Absolutely. That's one of my concerns. That's really one of my concerns. Let's just say if we elect a UDP mayor, we not only have the PUP as the ruling party, the party in power, but it's a super majority as well. And I think to myself, we have, we've experienced a PUP mayor with a super PUP in power. And depending on who you ask, not much only depending on who you ask, but statistically speaking, many are dissatisfied, many are disgruntled. So we see a situation where Dangriga don't really get much or generate much or pretty much just see the basics, even under a PUP government with a PUP mayor. I'm not sure if you want to add to that before I review the topic once again and then go into the other one.
Again, what I would simply say is that if Dangriga is pursuing this path to merge culture and tourism, what that will do or what that intends to do is to generate money independent of the central government. So to the extent that Dangriga can generate substantial sums independent of the central government, that reduces the town's dependence on central government. And that is a worthy aim to pursue.
Very good, Dr. Kass. Thank you. Moving on. Moving away from non-voters are hurting their own future. Residents who choose not to vote are allowing others to make decisions that shape the future of their community. Dr. Kass warns that non-participation ultimately affects future generations. Moving on, Dr. Kass, election season may last until 2030. Election season may last until 2030. The political cycle may continue almost uninterrupted through 2030, including municipal elections, village council elections, possible redistricting, and general elections. Let's touch on each, if you don't mind, especially redistricting.
Well, that is the timeline. The activities have now started. The ball has now started for the municipals, meaning that the closing date has happened and both parties have submitted their names. We do not know their names as yet, but we'll find out soon enough. We do not know if conventions will be held, but we'll find out soon enough. So the ball has started to roll for the municipals. You're looking at next year, 2027. Shortly after that, you're looking at the village council elections. Up to fairly recently, the village councils weren't as politicized as they are now. It's unfortunate, but they are politicized because, again, village councils need money. That a village, they need things like garbage collection, and the village needs money basically, and they
Mm-hmm.
need to rely on central government for money. I think that there are certain laws in place pretty soon that would allow the village to generate some amount of money. Uh, but my overall point is that village council elections have been politicized. And so you see the elections in 2028. And then the the prime minister, at the end of the day, he will be looking at these elections. These elections will provide to him basically a kind, will portend basically what the future may hold, and we do not know what he will think if he sees his party winning both elections and he sees the wind behind his sails. It's quite possible that he will call it. We do not know. But we know that the elections, the general elections, are constitutionally due in 2030. And then
Mm-hmm.
between now and then, we are hopeful that there's redistricting, that the prime minister had promised redistricting, and if he's not held to his promise, then there's absolutely nothing stopping UDP from forwarding their own plan how they would redistrict. So if PUP doesn't do it and UDP doesn't do it, you could safely assume that none of them want to do it.
That's a dangerous thing, though. So let's just say PUP decide that they're gonna do it. I mean, with Jerry Enriquez in court and the pressure being put on them, they said I read an article just yesterday. I believe they did state that it will be completed before 2026, before the end of this year, practically. I really hope. But let's just say they go ahead and they do it. What do you see? What do you see for Dangriga? How can that benefit Dangriga? I want people to get into the nitty gritty of this and understand how this is affecting us.
Well, if you look at the national population countrywide, you see far more persons in the north and persons in the west. If you look at the south, yes, you see big villages. Bella Vista, I think, must be one of the biggest villages, extremely large, but the overall national population is still in the east, that's Belize City, in the west, that's Kaya, and up north, particularly in Orange Walk. How I think redistricting would affect Dangriga is that I would think that the constituency will be expanded, because if you look at the number of voters, I think it's something like 200 and something voters. And then if there are 31 constituencies and you do a basic average, and then there's a plus or minus 15%, let's say it works out to about 8,000. If Stann Creek West has around 11,000 and Dangriga has 6,000, when you add that together, that's 17. So if you
Mhm.
divide that equally, then you look around maybe 8,000 in each constituency, 8,000 in Dangriga, 8,000 in Stann Creek West. To get the 8,000 in Dangriga, you have to expand the town. You either go to Pomona area and you go up the highway, the Hummingbird Highway, or then you broaden it south to include the Hopkins and City and that area. I'm not certain what
Which
you do
would
that.
mean the constituency fund would either increase or decrease, correct?
Um, well, the meaning that the fund, the government decides how much it gives each constituency. I know that
Yeah,
government is structured.
it is decided based on the size of the constituency, or at least
Indeed,
it
because
should.
and it should, yes, but it's not because the Belize City, it's decided, I think, based on ministerial power. Some ministers are more powerful than others, and I think that that is what ultimately decides the distribution of the constituency fund.
And again, I said to those of you tuned in, this is something we need to keep on. We need to keep asking questions. We need to keep holding our leaders accountable. Why don't we, before I even continue with my comment, Dr. Cass, maybe I'm saying this out of my own naivety, but let's take a look at the Dangriga constituency. What type of, and Stann Creek West, shouldn't our era representatives have some type of power or have some type of say or influence in helping to speed up this process, or to force the leader of their party's hand to make sure that this get taken care of?
Well, I can't answer that. You have to speak to them directly. I really can't answer that, meaning that I'm certain that this issue is discussed in cabinet where things are confidential. So I really would know the answer to that.
It's something that boggles my mind, because if I am representing my people, if when we go to vote, we are going to vote because we want to choose who it is will go and speak on our behalf and go and act on our behalf. Yes? That's why we vote. So if I am the era representative of any constituency, in this case, Dangriga, and I see how this redistricting thing is so unfair to my people, to all of us in the South, I can't see myself to sit down in our cabinet meeting and not keep pressing the issue or talk to my colleagues and say, listen, don't rally behind this. We need to do this. But as I walk out of this topic, Dr. Kass, what would your best bet? What would be the reason that they don't want to redistrict? Your best gamble.
Because the status quo benefits some people, meaning that if you look at how the constituencies are aligned countrywide, Belize City has 10 constituencies. Belize District has 3 more. 10 plus 3 is 13. If you could win Belize City and Belize District, you win 13. You only need 3 seats countrywide to become the government. So obviously, political power is concentrated in Belize City. And some people like that. Some people would want that to remain forever, for as long as possible.
That is so unfortunate. That is really unfortunate. I hope that those of you listening, please, want to take action. Dr. Kass, this is where I ask you to look into the camera as you have been doing and just grace our listeners, our viewers, with your wisdom once again, with your concluding remarks. Keep Dangriga in mind, focusing on your analysis and your hope for Dangriga, your hope for Dangrigana.
Well, I am a product of the South. I'm from Dangriga, and I want the best for Dangriga. All of us have our role to play in making Dangriga a better place. So, for example, then you may decide to run for politics. I'm not running for politics, but what I will do, I will provide economic and statistical analysis, and I'll try to be the best person analyst, the best analyst I can. in talking about Dangriga's challenges and how best to address those challenges. And I regard myself as a pollster. Whoever puts their name up to run for any election in Dangriga, I will undertake objective statistical analysis to tell that person his or her chances of winning. And when that person wins, I'll be conducting regular what we call approval ratings to try to keep them on track. That we all want Dangriga to develop. We want the best possible leaders that we could have. And having elected our leaders, we want to keep them accountable. And I'm hoping that polls keep them accountable. I'm hoping that approval ratings, when it's high, I will tell them. When it's low, I will tell them. And based thereon, I want them to know that numbers will be used to keep them accountable so that Dangriga becomes a far better place, and the Dangriga we leave for our children is a better one than the one that we're living in now.
Dr. Cass, I want to thank you, my brother. This has been truly, really and truly informative. My gamble is that those listening tonight definitely learned something. Those listening tonight were inspired. Thank you very much. Melaxi, thank you for reading the comments. To each and every one of you tuning in tonight, wherever you are tuning in from, I salute you. I thank you for coming on here every Wednesday night. And as I close, as we come to the end of this episode, I want to leave you with a simple but important thought. Dangriga's future is not something that will happen to us. It is something we are creating right now through our discussions, through our actions, and sometimes through our inaction. Tonight, we discuss voters turnout. We discuss economic realities, poverty, development, leadership, and the choices that lie before us. We examined data with Dr. Cass. We examined trends and possibilities, but statistics alone cannot transform a community. Reports cannot build a town. Polls will help, but they cannot create opportunities. People do. You do. We do. The question is not whether Dangriga has potential. The question is whether we have the courage, whether we have the discipline and vision to unlock that potential. All of us have potential. All of us have that inherent potential. The question, for too long, many of us have sat on the sidelines. The question is not whether or not we're going to keep standing or sitting on the sidelines, but what are we going to do with our potential, the God-given potential that you have? The future of Dangriga will not be determined solely by politicians, by political parties, or election results. It will be determined by whether we choose to become informed citizens rather than spectators, whether we choose participation over apathy, whether we choose accountability over blind loyalty, and ultimately, whether we choose change over complacency. So tonight, I encourage each and every one of you not to simply leave this conversation here. Discuss it with your family, discuss it with your friends, discuss it with your neighbors and colleagues. Ask difficult questions. Demand better answers. Become engaged in shaping the community you wish to see. Because one day, our children, my children, your grandchildren will inherit the Dangriga we are leaving behind. Let it be a Dangriga that we fought to improve. Let it be a Dangriga that chose progress over politics. Let it be a Dangriga that refused to remain silent when change was needed. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to Dr. Cass, Dr. Philip Castillo. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your analysis. Milatse, thank you again for your comment. Good night to each and every one of you. This is Dangriga Unmuted, where we unmute the truth and we demand change. Until Wednesday, 8 p.m., I'll see you again. I salute each and every one of you. Dr. Cass, Milatse, Mabwiga.
Remy.
Tonight in Dangriga, a wave of voter dissatisfaction is hitting local and national leaders alike. Mayor Robert Mariano, ERA Representative Dr. Louis Zabane, and even Prime Minister John Briceño. A new survey by pollster and retired assistant professor Dr. Philip Castillo shows support for Dr. Zabane has plunged dramatically. Remember, he won big in 2020 with 61% of the vote, and his popularity soared even higher in 2025 when he secured 76.5%. But Dr. Castillo's latest polling tells a very different story, one that suggests confidence in these leaders is slipping fast.
He's underwater because I think he's at 41%, which means that more at 41%, 4 out of every 10 voters do not approve of the job that he's doing. Now, again, we did not ask them why, but some voters, some citizens did provide an opinion. And then the opinion would be that in terms of accessing the area rep, that there seem to be challenges in accessing him, basically, in meeting him and those and that specific issue.
A closer look at the numbers shows Dr. Zabane lost support in Dangriga Town and Saraway, but he's still strong in outlying villages like Hope Creek. Responding to the poll, Dr. Zabane says he welcomes Dr. Castillo's work, but argues that data collected closer to election time gives a truer read on how voters will actually decide.
First of all, the size of the poll is relatively small, but still helpful, so I'm not knocking it in that sense. I'm just saying that if you look at the last polls that he has done, you could go back and check them out. They have been consistently lower than the actual performance. So in my view, I don't believe that the numbers are that low. But even if they were, it is good to know so that you can take action.
One of the things that people were saying is that you're hard to access.
Yes, and that's the one that seems farthest from the truth. I am one of the very consistent area representatives that have office hours. So on Thursdays, like for example tomorrow, I have my office. I am at the office. I have an office that is open from Monday to Friday, so persons can go, and they do go in. So besides the office hours on the Thursdays, I also visit on Saturdays the different, because we have Dangriga, Saraway, and Hope Creek.
Voters were also asked how they feel about the job Dangriga Mayor Mariano is doing. He first won the mayoral seat with 51% of the vote in 2021 and boosted his support to 63% in 2024. But today his approval shows a slight dip from where he started back in 2021.
He faces election next year, 2027. So what the poll found this year is that he's back around, I think it's 48.9% or just about 50%. So he's in that range. But then a poll has something called a margin of error, meaning that the 48% could be as high as 48 plus 6, because I think the margin of error was 6.8%, or 48 minus 6. And then again, if you look carefully at the numbers, 17% did not have an opinion. They said not sure or they're uncertain.
Voters also pointed to some persistent concerns in the municipality. They want better streets, improved garbage collection, and real action on unemployment, which many say remain a consistent challenge. When we reached out to Mayor Mariano for a response, he told us, quote, "I am appreciative of Dr. Philip Castillo, and although the next town council elections are a little over a year away, and notwithstanding a lot of change within that time, I am humbled by the favorable poll survey and results at this point in time. We are grateful for the public opinion and will do whatever we can to address their concerns." But the most striking number in this poll is the Prime Minister's approval rating in Dangriga, when voters were asked